Hi, welcome to Travel Tales with Judith. I'm Judith, and I share experiences and stories from a lifetime of travel. In 1991, I was on a delegation through the Center for Global Education out of Minnesota that visited both Nicaragua and El Salvador, two countries that had just come out of, or still were just barely coming out of, horrific civil wars, mainly because of oppression by the government of the poor people in those countries. In Nicaragua, in 19 up to 19 about 79, I think it was, there was a dictator called Somoza, and the people in Nicaragua suffered greatly under this dictator. And a movement formed called the I always get this wrong, FSLN, which was the Sandinista National Liberation Front. Daniel Ortega was one of the early members of that group, and he became the commander of the movement and pretty much ruled Nicaragua up until 1990. I always really admired that particular revolutionary movement because it was working on behalf of the poor people in the country who had been oppressed for so long. The principles of the Sandinistas were to establish land reform, to provide education and health care for people who were not getting it, and to kind of, probably we'd say it was a socialistic country. But when you look at these countries where communities work together and don't have that um, independent feeling that we have in the United States, where we have to do everything on our own, it's kind of the natural progression that a socialized government would appeal to them, where things would be equaled out when things had been so far divisive. So I admired Daniel Ortega. He spoke well, he represented the people adored him, and I felt like he was doing something really good for his country. The people fighting, the government troops that were fighting the Sandinistas, were backed also by a group formed by President Reagan called the Contras. And the Contras were a lot of mercenaries and people from other countries and Americans that went down to fight against this Sandinista movement. So when I was in Nicaragua in 1990, Daniel had just, or 1991, Daniel had just been defeated in a democratic election. And he was defeated by a woman called Violeta Chamorro. There's a lot written about Violeta Chamorro. She had some kind of a Marian complex, meaning the Virgin Mary type of complex. She always wore white, and she appealed, to people on different levels. But anyway, he was now out of office. And when I was there, we found out that his working and living compound was very, very close to where we were staying. So three of us decided to go and see if we could say hello to him. This is not something one should do. Now, I did not know the rules about delegation or anything like that, but actually, one should not independently do something on a delegation where the other members of the delegation were not involved in the decision to do it and had no say in it. But three of us, ignorance can be bliss, went up to the compound, knocked on the door, and it was answered. And we talked about, and we wondered, hi, we're from the United States. Can we meet Daniel Ortega? And the man was not very particularly friendly or anything, but he says, well, give me your phone numbers. And so we did. We had a phone number. I forget. I guess it was a phone number at the place we were staying because there weren't cell phones at that time. So we thought, well, that's that. But guess what? We got a phone call and a time to come back. So we did. And no one else in the delegation knew what we were doing. So we went back and we were admitted to the complex, and Daniel Ortega's main secretary came out and sat with us for about 15, 20 minutes and just chatted about all kinds of things. And then in comes Daniel himself. So I'm going to be showing a picture right about now that it's kind of fuzzy, but that's me, second from the right. And you can see Danielle. Anyway, there it is. I was the only one of the three that spoke Spanish, so Danielle and I were kind of having our own conversation. I was translating back and forth, and it was going along nicely. It was really a nice conversation. He was funny, and we were just delighted to be talking to this man. And I asked him at one point if he could tell us a message. If we're going back to the United States to give talks or whatever, could he send a message with us? And he said yes. And that message and a little bit more with what happened with this is in episode 21B. So tune in. Thanks.